Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the absolute bedrock of how our society functions. We're unpacking the core concepts of grassroots democracy, starting right at square one, governance explained. We're going to explore the hidden, and sometimes not so hidden, mechanics of how decisions get made and how order is maintained, so that millions of us can actually live together in relative harmony.
Before we get into the nuts and bolts, let's look at this profound quote from Nobel Peace Prize laureate Rigoberta Menchú. She says, "There is no peace without justice, no justice without equality, no equality without development, no democracy without respect to the identity and dignity of cultures and peoples." This really sets the stage for us, doesn't it? It reminds us that governance and democracy aren't just dry bureaucratic jargon. They're deeply tied to the absolute highest stakes of human existence: our peace, our justice, and our shared dignity.
So, Section 1, the need for rules, from home to society. To wrap our heads around these massive global concepts, we kind of need to start small. Think about the rules you follow every single day at home, at school, or driving down the road. Now, take a second and really think about this. What would actually happen if no one followed the rules? What if you woke up tomorrow and every single guideline just vanished? Society wouldn't just be a little inconvenient. It would literally freeze up completely.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what we're talking about. Look at the contrast here. On one side, we've got total order. Vehicles stopping at red lights, pedestrians using the crosswalk safely. It just works. But look at the other side. Total gridlock and absolute chaos. Without agreed-upon rules, our entire society would look exactly like that mess.
Moving right along to Section 2, what is governance? The system of society. So how do we actually prevent that chaos and make sure millions of people can coexist? Well, we need a formal system. Governance is basically that overarching process of making decisions, organizing society's life with different sets of rules, and crucially, ensuring they're actually followed. It's the whole dynamic process of keeping things running smoothly. Now, you've got to make a clear distinction here between governance as a process and the government itself. The government is the actual group of individuals or the established system that acts as the machinery. Think of it this way. If governance is the act of driving a car, the government is the engine actually making it move.
And the absolute most critical outputs of that government engine? Laws. Laws are simply the heavyweight rules governing society. But here's the really cool part about living in a democracy. These rules aren't just carved in stone by some distant ruler. Just like students might hash out a dress code with their principal, citizens get a real voice in shaping these laws. They actually evolve as we do.
Okay, Section 3. 3 organs of government, the machinery in action.
Let's dive into this machinery. How exactly does a government create, enforce, and interpret these laws? Well, they do it through 3 distinct branches, or organs. Let's look at a modern example. 30 years ago, sending money meant standing in a long line at a post office for a physical draft. Today, we transfer funds instantly from our phones. Amazing, right? But that incredible convenience birthed a totally new problem: cybercrime. Society needed a fix, and that is exactly where the 3 organs of government spring into action. The first organ to step up to the plate is the legislature. This is basically an assembly of representatives chosen by us, the people. When a brand new threat like digital theft pops up, the legislature is the organ that steps in to make new laws to officially define and outlaw that cybercrime. They're also the ones updating outdated laws or scrapping ones we don't need anymore. Essentially, they write the rule book. Once the legislature has written that law, they pass the baton to the second organ, the executive. The executive branch is all about implementing or executing those laws. This includes the head of state, the ministers, and crucial agencies like law enforcement. So, going back to our cybercrime example, once the laws are passed, it's the executive branch, specifically specialized units like the cyber police, who do the actual groundwork to track down those digital thieves.
And finally, we hit the third organ, the judiciary. This is the entire system of courts, going all the way up to the Supreme Court. Look, when the executive branch arrests a suspected hacker, they don't just toss them in a cell. No way. The judiciary steps in to objectively decide if a law was actually broken based entirely on the evidence. If there's a conviction, the courts decide the necessary punishment, like a fine or jail time. Sometimes, the judiciary even steps in to make sure the laws written by the legislature were fair in the very first place.
Which brings us to Section 4, the separation of powers, keeping the balance.
So we've got the lawmakers, the law enforcers, and the law interpreters. But for this whole system to actually protect us, these 3 interacting organs absolutely must be kept strictly separate.
The crucial point here is that this separation creates a massive fail-safe mechanism called checks and balances. By keeping the legislature, executive, and judiciary independent from one another, every single organ can check what the others are doing. It stops any one branch from going rogue and acting way beyond its expected role.
To really grasp why this is so absolutely crucial, just take a second to imagine the alternative. What if all three organs were controlled by the exact same group of people? Imagine if the folks writing the laws were also the police arresting you and the judges deciding your guilt. There'd be zero fairness, no objective review, and basically no way to fight back against unfair treatment. It would be a fast track to tyranny and disorder. The separation of powers is what prevents that nightmare.
Now let's look at Section 5, 3 levels of government, scaling the solutions.
Let's see how this all builds, not just in terms of types of power, but geographically. A country is a massive place, right? One central office just can't micromanage every single town. That's exactly why governance scales across 3 different tiers: local, state, and national. Think about a light bulb going out in your house. First, you check the switch in your own home. That's your local level. If that doesn't fix it, you might call an electrician from your city, the state level. But if the whole city grid goes dark, you're contacting the main electricity board, the national level. Government works the exact same way. It tackles neighborhood issues locally, regional stuff at the state level, and the massive countrywide problems nationally. And honestly, the results of these 3 levels and 3 organs all working together are physically all around us. Just look at massive infrastructure projects like railways. We kind of take things like national transport, border security, public schools, and huge highways totally for granted. But these physical realities are the direct result of governance at work. It's decisions being made, laws getting funded, and plans being executed by this massive government machinery on a daily basis.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer for today. We've traced the whole journey from simple household rules all the way up to the complex machinery of the legislature, executive, and judiciary. So I want to leave you with a bit of a challenge. When you step away from this explainer today, just look around. When you're crossing a street, buying a coffee, or scrolling on the internet, ask yourself, which level or organ of government is quietly at play in your daily life right at that very second? It's everywhere once you start looking. Keep observing focused learners, and I'll catch you in the next one.